So onto Fledge 5. Now we're in the end of 2014. Now you can see the program got really broad and global. Two more failed to ship in this case, failed to find the right product for the right customers. But we knew that by now. We learned that lesson by now, but we thought these two needed a chance. One was in the space of knowing who to vote for. We thought way back in 2014 that was an important thing to do. Great team. They worked together before. They had a prototype. The product looked good. Really, nobody succeeded in that space. Nobody has found a product that resonates with anybody in politics. I haven't seen one. RevealX, I thought, was even more interesting. This was the first funded startup from the Republic of Georgia ever. We were the first investors in the Republic of Georgia. The guys literally were like in their 20s, and when they were born, it was the Soviet Union, but they were in free Georgia, right? Because of the breakup. And they wanted to mash up electronic billboards and social media. They wanted to bring the power of social media to all these electronic billboards so that people could say things in public that otherwise would just be stuck on your screens in social media. And so we did that, and they found an investor in Seattle, and they got to come here, and they got to try it. And ultimately, what happened is they just couldn't get the product market fit. Then the U.S. government said you can't stay, visa issues, and they, money would have fixed that, but they just couldn't find the next bit of money because they didn't quite get it to work out. Probably timing. There was one in here that we can't say if it succeeded or failed, right? You remember, Shala, you remember this one? Remember the name of the company?
Is this Little Gray Farms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're in the U.S., and you've eaten escargot, the reason why it doesn't taste great in the U.S. is that you can't buy a fresh snail in the U.S. They're all imported from Europe in a can. So if you go to a high-end French restaurant in New York City, you're eating canned snails. It's crazy, right? They're much, much, much better in Europe. So this entrepreneur learned how to grow snails while he was working at the zoo. He fell in love with snails at the zoo. He was a communications guy. He's even a zookeeper. To grow snails, what you really do is you set up a lettuce farm, and it has a snail problem. So he bought a farm out in rural Seattle, and he grows lettuce out there and has some snails there. These snails, they're actually they're not endangered species. They're invasive species. So they're in all 50 states. They're endemic, as the USDA calls it, but there's a bunch of rules about how you can deal with these snails. The USDA said you have to build a quarantine facility with 2 doors and airlocks and all this jazz. So we went to Shala and the crowd here in Seattle, and we said, do you guys want to fund this? And they said yes. And I turned to the entrepreneur and said, no, I don't want their money. Like, I just want to do this myself. Another one of these guys who just pushed back on the investors and said, no, I got it. It'll take me a few years, but we'll get there. And so we said, fine, we're patient as Fledge. We'll help you in any way you want. Tell us if you ever want more money. And so this company moved along and along and along. I checked in with him before the pandemic. He was all
snail's pace.
Yeah, snail pace. Yeah, great. Good joke. He was all set to make this a really big company in 2020. He was all set to go big. And then a pandemic hit. So the good news is that he was taking this slow path. So there was no big deal. He has a job. He got his job. He didn't lose his job last year. And he'll launch this company next year, right? For real, in scale. And by then, the restaurants will be hungry for snails, right? He had huge restaurants wanting to order these things, all set for 2020. Name brand restaurants and restaurateurs. Hopefully, they're still in business, but this will be a big business when it finally gets going. And then another one that's kind of in this same realm is the one cook stove company we didn't know about when we started Burn. This was the largest cook stove company in Africa. It was accidentally started by a cab driver in Seattle. Great story. You can watch that online. Just search for Obama stove. It had done 220,000 stoves when I discovered the cab driver. We said we have to help out. We know something about stoves and everything. We invested some money in this company, and then the government of Ethiopia was stealing land from the biggest tribe. That's the tribe that the founder's from. And there was civil unrest from November of 2015 to March of 2017, if I get it right. I think I'm off on that. I think it was 2017 to 2019. 2.5 years, there was literally riots in the street and burning trash cans and sit-ins and everything, and people being disappeared, including our general manager. It was nasty. And this company survived that. And we got back on its feet, and the cab driver, he moved to Ethiopia to go and run this. And then a pandemic hit. Despite all that, I think we're up to 400,000 stoves. It's still growing. It's still going. It has survived more than any other company out there, but I can't say it's a big success yet. It hasn't done 1 million stoves, and it's not a huge giant, it's not the success that Burn is yet, but we're going to get it there someday.
I guess the one where the CEO was disappeared, the company didn't survive that.
No, this is the company. The GM was disappeared. Okay. And the founder is his brother. He went over to Ethiopia. So his brother was a refugee that came to the States. His brother did not. His brother was stayed in Ethiopia the whole time. And so he went to go find his brother. And upon entry to the country, carrying he had a U.S. passport and an Ethiopian passport, they seized his cell phone and his laptop. Right? That's how bad the civil unrest was. They were afraid he was an agitator because he was related to this guy they took away. Couldn't find his brother. His brother was released. When the new PM came into Ethiopia, that PM won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019 for ending the civil unrest. It was an amazing turnaround. Country's doing amazingly well outside of a pandemic. And everything looks great for this, except, it's hard for me or anyone else to say, let's go invest in Ethiopia after they just went through basically a revolution. And then in this same cohort, we have one more company that we don't know what's going to happen to. Seems like it's going to be a big hit. It's called Evernew. She was a student of mine at BGI. She walked into this class day one, 8 years ago, and said, my partner and I have a technology that can take any cotton clothing, turn it back into fiber and back into clothing, and it'll be better than it was to start with. And we said, how does that work? And she said, I can't tell you. It took us 6 months to get her to tell us how it worked. We still don't know exactly how it works, but it's chemical. They melt fabric back into fiber and then turn it back into fabric. They have customers like Levi's and Adidas and Stella McCartney and Target. There is a pair of Levi's jeans that I have touched that were made out of old t-shirts, and they were supposed to be in the market last year, but a pandemic hit. So we're waiting on the pandemic to end for Levi's to come out with recycled jeans. This company's basically had no revenue for 7 years. It's raised like $10 million, mostly from angels. On paper, we've made we've already made a 10x return on paper before whatever valuation we'll get for this being a success. And we hope it does. We hope Levi's comes forth with their product anytime now, and Adidas and Target. And this becomes the new norm for fabric. And then I'm going to finish up with Fledge 6. I think this is the last one. There was a whole bunch of companies all over the place. They're all still going in some form. Yeah, but we're going to finish up with Arclight. This was an applicant from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Not a hot spot when it comes to startups. Argentina is one of the worst places in the world trying to do business. But nonetheless, we had this amazing entrepreneur who applied with a terrible idea back in like 2013, 2014. And so we told him that because we're pretty good at feedback. I'm known as direct feedback. I said, you got to find focus. Your idea is too big. So 6 months later, he applied again. And I said, better. Still not good, but better. And 6 months later, he applied again. And I said, that's an amazing idea. So you're in. The idea is to take plastic waste. This just looks like junk, right? Plastic waste straight from the land, on the way to the landfill, and turn it into artificial rocks and sell those rocks where you would sell quarry stone. So drainage stone or inside concrete. So they raised about $1 million in Buenos Aires, proved it out in Argentina. There's a factory down there. There's a video online if you want to go and see it. And then this is a picture of the new factory in Los Angeles. This got turned on about a month ago. Literally, we were waiting for the power, which took forever because of the pandemic. And this factory is about 10 times bigger than the one in Buenos Aires. This is real trash. And in terms of business, I love this business. We get paid to take the trash. It's trash. People pay for trash to get picked up and brought to landfill. Yeah, we get paid to take the trash. And then we send it through this machine, which has some secret sauce in it, turns into rocks, and then we get paid for the rocks. right? Nice business. It's going to be a great business this year in LA. On paper, we're up 16 times. Reality, no, we haven't got paid a dime, but on paper, we're looking great. And then the map here, and we're showing Buenos Aires in California, and then this is France. So the vision of this company, talk about business models. If we said that we were going to make factories in every city, because every city has plastic trash, we'd be talking about a company that needed, $100 billion in order to scale up. And we don't have $100 billion. We're a tiny little accelerator company. We're angels, right? We don't have $100 billion. So the actual business model is prove that it works in LA and then license it to others to put it in their cities. License it to waste management, license it to companies that have plastic waste themselves. And in this case, license it to Cemex, the company that makes cement. They're the big investor in this company. They wrote a nice check as a strategic investor. And they said, we'll only invest if we can have a license to build a plant in France. So here's money for your company, and we're going to pay you, a certain amount of euro cents per ton that we produce there. You'll teach us how to do that, but you don't have to give us any money. We'll just go do France and pay you for it. We thought about that for like 2 seconds and said, yeah, where do we sign? So we like this business a lot. This will be a great investment in 2 or 3 years when Cemex comes around to just buy us.